I'm Bob Riggio, and with me is Ken May, Captain Ken May, one of the many veterans, again, that we have located throughout the Black Hills area, West River area. And Ken, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Where are you from, and which branch of service did you join?
Okay, Bob, I was raised here in Rapid City for the most part. Graduated from the School of Mines. We had to take 2 years ROTC. A lot of my friends became officers when they graduated. I was drafted. I graduated from high school in '56, and I graduated from the School of Mines in '60. It should have been '60, but it was '61.
61,
Yeah.
okay.
Then I went to intelligence school. I met an FBI guy, and he said, Ken, I was trying to get in the Peace Corps, or, people don't remember what it was like, but you didn't want to go to Vietnam. Nobody wanted to go to Vietnam.
Yes.
Took the last basic training course in Fort Carson, Colorado. Was a private PFC. Went to intelligence school in Fort Holabird, Maryland, and it doesn't exist anymore, Fort Holabird. But from there, I worked a year in Kansas City running background investigations. I wanted to make sure I got to say the acronym LIDMAC that we were just drummed in our heads when I was in intelligence school. Loyalty, integrity, morals, discretion, and character. 5 things that we had to include in any report.
LIDMAC, that's the acronym, LIDMAC.
LIDMAC, yeah. That's an acronym. The CO of the intelligence unit in Kansas City talked me into going to OCS at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, artillery OCS.
Artillery, yeah.
And so,
Now you're in the Army.
in the Army, but I wore civilian clothes in Kansas City. I didn't even have to wear a uniform.
Because you were in intelligence,
In
right?
government car, yeah, and privacy was not an issue. We could flash our box tops.
Okay, let's just go back to intelligence. While you were in intelligence, what were your duties? What were you doing?
I say background investigations. We're interviewing and conducting an investigation on a person who the government was considering employing in a position of trust and responsibility. Because of the reports that we wrote, with all this brouhaha that's going on in document security now, we stamped everything secret. Somebody on the up the line could declassify it if they wanted to,
Okay.
but we didn't have a privacy thing then. But you're verifying loyalty, integrity, morals, discretion, and character. That had to be included in every report that we wrote. My tour in Vietnam was only 1 year. I'm terribly hard of hearing, as you know now, because when artillery OCS, all those howitzers are going boom, boom, boom. You didn't wear anything over your ears. It was just, so I blame that. And then I guess the helicopter crashed. I guess I was shot down. I didn't learn to fly. I wasn't a pilot till I got back here and took a private pilot. But in Vietnam, I flew a lot with guys that said, hey, if you take the controls here, if we get hit, I want to crash in a semblance of order. And so the helicopters are not that hard to fly, but I didn't do a lot of flying. The one that was shot down was called a cayuse, a little football we called it. And there was a minigun mounted on the outside of it. And the pilot, everywhere he was looking, that pip, that's where that gun was pointed. And we were going into what they called a logger. I was going into a cav unit. This happened that this cav unit was headed by Patton's son, Patton Jr., and he had his 6-shooters on his hip, and he tried to mimic his dad.
Yeah.
But a logger is just a circle that they go in, and the picture I had that I was going to show, that I would like to show, is the mud in Vietnam. Everything was the rain and the mud.
How were you shot down? How was that helicopter that you were on?
It was in a mortar attack that's what they were forming, a logger, and he was gonna drop me off. We got close to the ground, and a piece of shrapnel hit the chopper or whatever. He decided he was gonna land. There was no place to land, so he crashed the helicopter, and I jumped out before he hit the ground, because crashing in a helicopter is not. I didn't want to go that way. I went through artillery OCS, but I was assigned as an intelligence officer of the 12th Combat Aviation Group in Vietnam.
And what was your responsibility as an intelligence officer?
Well, then I got orders, TDY, to travel around for this special unit they were considering forming, because at that time, after a battle, they would say, well, we knew that that was going to happen. We have to form a quick reaction battalion. And so I was collecting data to form that battalion, but it never got formed. People don't realize the competition that exists between the services, and they also don't realize that if you write anything adversely about someone serving that is superior to you, an officer, for example, it's an efficiency report, you can ruin their career. And so when I was outpost of Song Bay, Vietnam, was headed up by a major. It was just a unit. And I went in there as an observer because they did not take any casualties. They were really good. CO was a major. And the fact that I was coming there to evaluate, he thought I would write something about him in that report. And so he told the first sergeant to pitch my tent. And my tent was the only thing above ground. Everything else was sandbagged. And so I thought they were trying to spook me a little bit, and so I hung my fatigues on the center pole of the tent. The person that was pitching the tent for me started digging a trench. And I said, well, what are you doing? He said, sir, we're getting mortared every night. You crawl into that trench. And I thought they're just trying to scare me, yeah. And so sure enough, we got mortared that night, boom, boom, incoming. And I got up in the morning, and I was in the tent.
You were in the tent.
But the minute you heard incoming, I crawled to the trench.
You crawled into the trench. Pretty quickly, I was.
It was full with water, mud, they made a believer out of me. And anyway, in the morning, the sun came up, and of course, the tent had holes in it. And I thought, God, they really must have got it. And my fatigues that I'd hung on the center pole had a hole in the pocket. I went to the major and said, sir, boom, I stuck my finger through the hole in the pocket. I said, I'm on your side. Because they think, you really, when you stop and think about it, intelligence officers, we had two enemies almost. The Vietnamese were against us, and the United States military didn't trust you. They didn't want you to write anything bad about them because that would reflect on their career. So anybody that stayed in the service as a career did not like to be interviewed or talked to by intelligence. Anyway, I don't want to go back there. One of my favorite uncles was over in Germany during the Second World War, and we went over to Germany. We spent a couple years there, my wife and I, and the German people in the countryside, and it was wonderful. And I said, Uncle Ray, come on over, spend some time with us. We'll show you around. He says, I'm never going back. And that's the way, the Vietnam is a beautiful country and it's wonderful people and all that, but I don't want to go back. I think of the Ukraine right now. I mean, the Vietnamese people didn't like Americans in the broad sense. I mean, and we didn't speak their language. We weren't the same color they were. They just naturally fought us the same way the Ukrainians are fighting the Russians today. It's a people thing. It boils down to individual people.
You think humanity would learn?
Yeah,
but they don't.
They don't learn. I finally learned a little bit more. I'm a lot less a hawk than I was when I was younger now. You become a peacenik when you get old. I mean,